So you want to move. Before we could even get into all that goes into that, we got to figure out whether or not you could actually afford to do so. I moved out into my first place at 23, and I've gotten a lot of questions about how I did it. I'm going to be trying to make a multi-part series on how you too can get into your first place, or even figure out how to move into your next place. By now, you should already have a good idea of what your budget looks like without rent, but if you don't, figure that out. But we also need to figure out what your budget for rent can be. Ideally, your rent should be 30% of your income. So if you make $6,000 a month, that would mean that your rent should be $1,800. Unfortunately, depending on where you live, rent that's 30% or less of your income is very hard, especially ones that fit your standards. So personally, I would say in the 40% is okay, but I definitely would try to stay away from anything 50% or more, because that's quite literally half of the money that you make every month just going to rent. You also want to take into account the bills that you already have. This is why I said you should have an idea of what your budget looks like, even if you're not paying rent. I would start with figuring out what 30% of your income is, then adding on whatever other expenses you already have and see if that's a comfortable amount. When I say comfortable amount, I mean, can you afford to pay your rent, pay your other bills, and still have some money to spend and to save? If not, think about whether or not there's any areas where you can make some cuts. But when it comes to making cuts, you want to make realistic cuts. Don't tell yourself that I can afford rent if I never go out to eat anymore, or if I never go shopping anymore. That's not realistic, and it's also extremely limiting. That's not a way that anybody wants to live. You also want to keep in mind that you may have to pay utilities. Now, in the meantime, we're working on our credit. You need to have a good credit score in order to be approved. Trying to get our credit up is really going to help when we get farther down the line. Another really important one, we're going to have a savings for the apartment itself. However, you also want to have a standard emergency savings. You never know what may happen. Having an emergency savings allows you to stay afloat until you're able to get back on your feet and start getting that income flowing back in. Once we figure out numbers, we can move on to our next step, which is saving. There are a lot of things that you need to save for when moving into your next place, but we'll get into that in another video as part of this series. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.